Hey coin collectors, it's DC on the Big D Coin Channel, and we're looking at the 1969 United States pennies here. We have one from Philadelphia, no mint mark, an S for the San Francisco Mint circulating, a D for the Denver Mint, and then down here we have another S, and that's from the San Francisco Mint proof coin, and you can tell that's a proof coin. Look at the shininess on that. Well, 1969 is a funny year. They have a $605,000 penny from 1969, which was a double die obverse. And you can see that in a bunch of different videos, including one we'll leave a link for at the DC Coin World website. And that has a great story to it about counterfeiters and frauds and fakes. And then there's one from 1969 that has a floating roof on it. We'll show you that one. We'll talk about that one. And then there's a regular 1969s that also have plenty of expensive and valuable regular circulating coins. So let's start with this 1969 Philadelphia. Now they made a lot of pennies in 1969, and of course we know that's going to change. It turns out that the United States just made its last production penny. They're not going to make any more pennies after the second week in November of 2025. We'll still get to use the pennies, and they're still going to be in regular circulation, but they're gradually going to weed them out and they won't be used anymore. And retailers will probably round up or round down if you're in the middle. We'll see what they do in the coming months. At the Philadelphia Mint in 1969, they made 1.13 billion pennies. They're 95% copper, 5% zinc. These are the old ones. They're the Lincoln Memorial penny, and you can see on the back it says United States of America, e pluribus unum, 1 cent. If you magnify it way up, this is where you sometimes see the floating roof, but you can see on this one, and I'm going to use my pointer, that there's a line there and there's a line there if you kind of get it at the right angle. So this is not a floating roof, and the floating roof ones are going to be in general the Denver coins, and we know that this is a Philadelphia coin, so it's not a recognized floating roof version. You can see this is really worn out, but if you get a great one at a Mint State 65 they're worth $20. At a Mint State 67 plus they're worth $575. And the auction record for one from a Bowers and Marina auction in 2010 is $5,750. So plenty of money, even if you don't have the counterfeit one or the double die obverse one. We do have the Denver Mint coins, and they'll have a D over here. And whenever you get a Denver Mint from 1969, first thing you do is flip it over. We tip it and look and see if there's an FG on the back for Frank Gasparo. Now some of these will be pretty worn out, and you can see this one here, but if we tip it just right, you can see that there is FG on the back. And you can see this one's pretty worn, but it still has the FG. And if you get this in this shape, it's worth a penny. But if you get this in Mint State 67 plus, it's worth about $8,000. They found 3 of them. And at Mint State 65, again, it's worth about $20. They made 4 billion Denver Mint pennies in 1969. And it's also that floating roof Denver coin from 1969. And that one is interesting because the very top of the roof does not appear like it's bonded onto the pillars that cross the front of the Lincoln Monument. Something happened in the minting process, so 2 lines one on each side of that top roof did not come through. And here's that 1969 floating roof penny. Now these aren't hugely valuable, but you can still get up to around $600 for it if you get it in incredibly good condition. And if you get one that's not in great condition, you can still get $3 to $5 for it minimum. And what's the floating roof? Well, there's where it is right there. And you can see on each side of this roof on the top, here, here, and here, there's no supports on the roof as it goes up. And so It all actually looks like it's floating up on top of the building, and it's just a couple lines that got forgotten. Now, if we just go back, we can see what a regular one looks like with the roof on it, and you can see it's very clear that these lines come all the way down and touch. They come all the way down and touch. So the regular roof, right there with the lines, the floating roof, right here without the lines on each end. At the San Francisco Mint, they made two different coins. They made the proof coins, which we have right here, and they made the regular circulating coins. Almost 550 million regular circulating coins and about 2.9 million proof coins. The regular circulating 1969s can be very valuable also. Mint State 65, you're probably still talking about $20. At a Mint State 68, which they found four of, it's worth $10,000. So these San Francisco regular pennies still have a huge value. And you can see this one's not going to have much value. But this is one of the last years that they made regular circulating S pennies. So if you see a 1969 S circulating, keep it, because they just didn't make them at the San Francisco Mint in regular circulation after that. And then if we look at the proof one, they made 2.9 million proof coins at the San Francisco Mint. And of those coins, they found a bunch of proof 69s. And because it's in the year 1969 has all these other coins, it drives up the value of even the less collectible ones. And this one here, if you can get an proof 69, is worth $625 in a deep cameo. And they've graded 101 of those. So there's plenty of those out there, and they're very valuable. And when you look at the back of this one, oh my goodness, you can definitely see what the details are on there. You see there's an FG over here. And one of the things we'll talk about with the Denver coins is they found some without that FG over there. And that FG that's right there on the side is for Frank Gasparo, who was the engraver of the back of these coins. And when you tip it up and look at it, you just see that this is really impressive. This isn't a highly valuable one, probably just $2 to $3. But if you get this in great shape without all this spotting and with a deep cameo, this could be very valuable. All right, well, that's all we have today from Big D Coins. We'd love to have you subscribe to the Big D Coin channel and leave any comments you have in the comment section.